Hello everybody, and today we are going to be checking out a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 22 of our series, and in the last episode we saw a lot of colonization occur over here in the Americas. A new ideology start to spring up over here in the southern regions of China, and the beginnings of a tripolar system enacted by the red team. If you guys do enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. We are on the road to 1,500 subscribers by the end of the year. And yeah, let's get straight into our scenario. So first, we are going to start over here in the Caucasus region, and this is where we are going to see something very bad for the brown team happening. We are going to see a group of people breaking away from the brown team in the rural areas, primarily staying away from the urban areas, because the brown team is ruled, like I said in the last episode, is an economic oligarchy, which means that it serves to the elites in the country. So that is why the, kind of rural areas are breaking away, because the brown team is focusing too much on the urban population instead of the rural one. And when you focus on urban instead of rural, then you get the rural is going to break away. And eventually, one of your most important areas in your entire country has now been under the rebel influence. But this rebellion is going to break out in other places as well. There are going to be signs of it over here in South Caspia, and even a couple of pockets arising over here in Turkmenistan. Now, this rebellion is being funded by an unknown source. I will not be able to disclose it right now. But this rebellion is spreading absolutely everywhere around the Caspian Sea. And no, the Russians, they are not funding it. In fact, the Square team has nothing to do with this. But moving further along with the war, we see brown team incursions are going to be able to recapture major pockets of territory. This, of course, just being the rural areas over here, but they're also going to be able to make substantial gains over here in the north of the rebellion, and they're even almost able to link up with this major city again. They're also sending naval assets over here to the Turkmenistan country, and this pocket is going to be wiped out. But the people that were inciting this pocket are just going to go up here and start one on the border of the gold team. And these guys have a nomadic ideology, and that basically means that their rebellion, even if it is wiped out, say that this happens and the brown team takes the rest of it, it could still just pop up anywhere. Eventually, brown team is going to be pushed back, but this is going to be at the fault of their other rebellions. Two pockets are going to collapse over here, the ones closest to the capital, and the gold team is going to send in special militants, and they are going to help the Turkmenistan country wipe out this pocket. And the Cyan team, or the South Caspians, are able to wipe out their entire incursion of the rebellion. But of course, now this has given the rebellion time to solidify, capturing their first major city. And all of the urban overlords / elites are going to be executed in some pretty gruesome ways. Some of them are just going to be thrown into the Caspian, some of them are going to be crucified. Doesn't really matter, they are just dead now. And the brown team is having a very hard time trying to push these guys back. They do have a good amount of success here in the south and in the north, but eventually this rebellion from the country that, is funding it, they are going to be able to secure a deal with some of the elites inside of the brown team. Of course, with the brown team elites in this city, they faced persecution. So if this rebellion so happens to maybe take over the entirety of the brown team, then that would lead to you being killed. So it's in your best interest to try and make peace with these guys, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And now we can take a look at this peace treaty. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like. We see that this Caucasian country is going to get their independence, placing their capital over here in the areas by Baku. But these guys, for now, are not going to be aligned to any alliance. It's a little bit suspicious, they just broke away. Maybe they're trying to seek refuge from the Diamond team, but they're not doing that, and they are just laying low. Of course, with the entire Diamond Alliance having dominance over here around the Caspian Sea, they are pretty safe because they have a peace treaty with the Diamond Alliance. Like I said, the elites over here, they decided that. And now these guys basically have an immunity card for the next couple of episodes, but they will make their choice when it comes. But now going up here to the northern, central areas of Europe, we are going to see a unification take place. And this unification is going to be between Prussia and Kaliningrad, so that is going to look a little something like this. Their capital is going to be in the previous Kaliningrad capital, and henceforth the Prussian state will grow, but it's still kind of Kaliningrad, so it's debatable whether they would stay in the Square team. But, just for continuity, they are going to be staying inside the Square team. And yeah, now we have the first signs of a solidaro Polish state. Now, like I just said, it was Prussia and Kaliningrad uniting, so I don't know why I called it Polish. But, ethnically, it is Königsberg, kind of, not really sure. But now we're going to head down over here to South America, and this is where the Chinese and the French are going to create a mandate that will, divide up southern South America. The Chinese are going to take basically the entire coastal regions of Chile, basically just wanting to get over here to the Atlantic Sea. And once they reach over to the Atlantic Ocean, they are going to bid their riddance, and they're only going to take this. While the French are going to take a lot more. They're going to expand all the way up to these Bolivian areas, and we have seen with the French in the past, they really do like to make these claims. So with them taking all of this, it's kind of similar up here to their like American-Canadian colony. Now it should be better referred to as the American colony because their colony actually only consists of these territories. The rest of this is just claims. And it's very similar down here. The only like actual remnants of French presence is over here, while out here is just their diplomatic claim. And I think I am going to revise this border because it is not very good. Alright, I think that looks a little bit better. But now Chinese ships are going to get over here to the Galapagos and they are going to colonize it. And now we see sort of a scramble for South America taking place as a lot of these gold-rich areas are being deliberated over. But the Iberians are going to make their final due as they are going to claim their final piece of territory that they are basically ever going to claim. This is because all of the claimed territory in the world has basically shrunk down to here in South America and here in northern North America. And of course, Iberia has no presence over here in northern North America, so their final ditch effort is over here. Of course, like their colonial empire can still expand through wars and stuff, but this is going to be the final, I guess, kind of, treaty-bound expansion. And they really are going to treat it as such because they are going to take a massive amount of territory, basically splitting everything here in the Amazon areas. And they take these territories. Once again, these are just claims. We see the Chinese are going to take the western areas over here by Peru. And I could say that the French take this, or maybe the Chinese take this, or maybe even the Spanish take this. But I am going to leave this as unclaimed territory because realistically, no one would really want this. And yeah, this world map is basically entirely full by now. Now, I know it is only episode 22, but I am going to give you guys a little bit of a lore drop. Not really lore, but just kind of planning of the series up until episode 30. The timeline from episode 22 to 25, there are going to be a lot of tension stuff. It's going to be a lot of polarization. And then from 25 to 30 is going to be a series of events that are going to unfold and change the entire scape of Wixo. So I hope you guys are ready for that. From episode 25 to 30, it's going to be some crazy stuff. But now going over here to the English colony of Egypt, the English are going to do something very bad. These are the first signs of apartheid. Now, if you don't know what apartheid is, basically, it is the legalization of white supremacy inside of a nation. And the English have just done that over here in the British Isles. They have passed a whole bunch of mandates and laws and policies. And subsequently, this is going to absolutely decimate the native population over here in Egypt, devastating them, and they are going to lose their autonomy away from the English. And the final remnants of the Egyptian state have been kicked out of Egypt and replaced by unlawful laws. Of course, there's not a national committee to look after these laws. There's like not a UN or a NATO or anything like that. This is just countries going purely off their own devices. And the English are doing some very bad stuff. And this makes Egypt very sad, but I guess they're not really Egypt anymore, so I'm just going to call these guys Canaan. But actually, not straying too far away, we're going to see the Mesopotamians do some more stuff. Like I said in the last episode, they were going to join a polarizationized military alliance, of which being either the trapezoid, diamond, or square alliance. Now, I think we can entirely rule out the square alliance with their only presence being over here in Egypt, and if there were to be a giant war, then Western Arabia would most likely just pounce you. The Diamond Alliance has proved faulty in the past, as the Brown team can't really even keep their own country under control, let alone their own arch-nemesis, as their arch-nemesis was able to form their own alliance. So that leaves only one, and that is going to be the Trapezoid Alliance. Now, this doesn't come as much of a shock to me. Of course, Mesopotamia was very red team aligned. It's kind of similar to the situation as the red team and the orange team have really good relations because they both hate the purple team. The Mesopotamians and the Indians are going to have really good relations because they do not like the purple Persians. But now, the Mesopotamians are going to do something a little bit stupid. Of course, being stupid is objective. It is just kind of acting in their own inhibition. But it is sort of a weird concept that they're trying to ensue. But they're going to be claiming over a series of provinces from the Western Arabians. If I can find the right spacing percentage, that should be good. And this claim is going to go all throughout the areas by the Red Sea. And this is because, of course, they want their exports to be very good because they're red team allies all the way over here, and they really have no way of contacting them. And also, I'm very sorry, I think I just called these guys the Red Sea. This is not the Red Sea, it's the Persian Gulf. But now the pink team has a reasonable dispute with the Western Arabians, and I don't know why I turned off the capital layer. But with this, the red team is gonna, step in, and they're gonna be like, hey, Western Arabia, we're gonna give you a lot of money, and maybe even allow you to join our alliance if you just give them this territory. Even though the Western Arabians are reluctant, they are going to hand over the territory, now giving the Mesopotamians a coastline for the first time in a while. And now there's a direct route to go from the pink team to the orange team, and henceforth the red team. And the economy of this area is going to absolutely boom. And actually, when I did that, it's not really all of this area. It's more like this. This is where the economy is really good. And that is, of course, because it is the red team and their military alliance. And it's kind of interesting because it also has some economic assets like we see over here in Eastern Asia. But yeah, the red team and their economy is starting to flourish very nicely. But now with all of the Gulf state stuff over here in the Middle East and India, I want to make a statement, and that is, of course, that World War I is on the horizon of our series. I've already been talking about this for probably the last couple episodes, but you've heard me say the words, tripolar system and tensions and a whole bunch of polarization. And that is for good reason. You see all these military alliances, they're starting to hate each other a lot. Now, of course, this is excluding the circle team, they don't really matter. But the trapezoid, diamond, and square team, they have all officially, I'm saying this now, they have now all officially formed a tripolar system. And that basically, if you do not know, means one thing, and that is that Russia hates the brown team in India, and India hates the brown team in Russia, and the brown team hates Russia and India. Of course, India is not as involved because the beef here between the brown team and the Russians goes back a very long time, and even started as a flourishing of friendship, but eventually turned towards the brown team with the urban overlords. But the brown team is going to declare something for their entire alliance. Now, they were not authorized to give this statement, they just went and said, hey everybody, meet in the capital, the president, or I guess the leader, has something to say. And he is going to declare that the alliance, known as the Diamond Alliance, is going to be saying that their ideology is starting to shift. And that is because their ideology is now a proclaimed democracy. Now, when I say democracy, it is a very boiled down version of democracy. It is not true democracy. You still have elites running the country, and henceforth, the votes of the elites are going to be valued more than the common citizen. So this is nowhere near true democracy. Russia and India, who both don't like each other, can agree on this, that this is the wrong thing to do. Of course, the red team is not one of much to talk because, like I said in a couple episodes past, they have a leader, and that leader overlooks 5 oligarchs. So you have the 5 oligarchs down here, but then they are all overlooked by a supreme leader who resides over here in the capital. But that just means that the, authority and the, this is nowhere near democracy, but the authority kind of lies in the oligarchical people, and henceforth just the dictator. So I guess you could call the red team a dictatorship. I'm not quite sure though, because I'm not an expert on ideology. But with all of this ideology conflicting each other, and it's all saying that they're wrong, we're right, and it's all of that, and it's really scary, and no one knows what's going on, and no one can really comprehend what's going on, it's not very good. But now going away from all of the tripolar activity over here in India and the Middle East and Russia, there is going to be a very massive problem over here with the protectorate states of Numidia and Morocco. Of course, like I said in the previous episode, these guys were adopted as protectorate states from the Libyans and the Northern Italians. Not the Libyans, the Portuguese. The Portuguese basically protect these guys. But with the Portuguese protectorate state, they're actually doing pretty good. The economy has overall went up since they have been brought in by the Portuguese, and they see their economy is going up a lot. But in Numidia, who is being forefathered by the Northern Italians, it is not going as well. Before the Italians brought in the Numidians, their economy was kind of like this, not very good, but once, the Italians brought them in, it just kind of went like that. It's really bad. And that's what the economy of Numidia is looking like. And that is going to result with the treaty being abolished. Now, you might be asking, what treaty is going to be abolished? Well, of course, the treaty that said that these guys are under the protection of the Northern Italians. Protection cannot really be ensued when the economy is crashing and the Northern Italians are as incompetent as they are. So a series of coups are going to occur over here in the capital, and eventually it is re-liberated for Numidia. Pockets start to break out in support of the new government, which is going to be provisionalized from the old one, of course, with the Northern Italians. They're not very much working. And eventually the Portuguese are going to aid them in their endeavors, and eventually the entirety of the Northern Italian occupying force, they are going to be kicked out. And we see our first signs of Europeans starting to lose their grasp of Africa. Of course, they still kind of own the entire frickin' continent. I mean, they own everything except, this, and, we don't have to talk about that. But this goes to show that previous nations inside of Africa are, of course, not going to enjoy the European forefathering. But of course they do have to comply, or else something that the English did, the little something that they did a little bit of apartheid, and that's not very good. So maybe you should just break away from Northern Italy before they do the same to you. But now going back over here to the British Isles, I just mentioned the English a little bit earlier, and they're going to be going on yet another conquest. And this is going to be of Northern Ireland. Of course, these guys were just born. And with their birth being so recent, they are going to have a big economy falter, as the Scottish government was not very set up. And of course, with that government that wasn't very set up, setting up a new government, they couldn't even work on their own, and now they're trying to establish a new one, and it just led to absolute failure. And eventually, they're going to be fully annexed into the Purple Team, and now a lot of countries are starting to frown upon the actions being committed by the English. Sorry, my cursor keeps making me go down. I don't know why. I need a new keyboard. Because the English, of course, with their apartheid over here in Egypt, they're also wiping out their smaller neighbors, so maybe countries like France and the Benelux start to get a little bit worried, because eventually, they might just go ahead and do a little something like this and unite the British Isles, and they could become really powerful. Maybe even starting to rival the power by the French Empire. Of course, you can see it is massive. But this worries one country more than no other, and that is the Catalonians. Of course, we can see the largest colony upheld by a colonial power is over here in Africa, but the one over here controlled by Iberia is also still pretty massive. And Iberia is very scared of a new presence of power taking hold, as if that happens, then your empire might start to falter in its endeavors. So to try and show a sense of power, they are going to attempt to take the rest of this white territory, but eventually a mandate is passed only taking this territory. And with them acquiring the territories that I've just outlined, the rest of it is going to be divided by the French and the Chinese. And that will look like this. Oh no, just fixing that real quick, and it is going to look like this. And now the entirety of South America has officially been colonized and filled in. But with the act of desperation being displayed over here inside of Brazil, a country is going to break away from a colonial power. This is the first thing first instance that we've seen this. Of course, literally 2 minutes ago, the Numidians broke away from the Northern Italians, but they broke away by treaty that they were completely opened and, kind of encouraged to do. But these guys over here in Brazil who are not liking the current administration of the colony, they don't really have a pen-to-paper contract that they could just, rip up. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to do the best thing that colonial, rebels do, and they're just going to rise up. And that is because no strength of a piece of paper can stop the force of independence. And we are going to see this independence movement and the idea of independence away from colonial powers start to spread very quickly. We see one happening over here on this Gulf, and down here by the French colony. And this rebellion is starting to gain a lot of speed, with more support over here in the north arising and showing their heads. We can see the official pockets that are going to declare their independence away from the Iberians. And here we can see the official pockets that are going to be declaring their independence from the Iberians. But that will do it for today's scenario. That's right, we're ending it on a cliffhanger. There's a civil war in Iberia and Brazil. And, that's going to continue inside of episode 23. If you guys did enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. We still are on the road to hit 1,500 subscribers by the end of the year. I really am confident that we can do it. This is something that I think if we put our minds to, we can do. And actually, I would like to say that about 73% of you are not subscribed. I know that's a really old thing and we should have probably moved past it by now, but the numbers are still there. So if we get 73% of people to subscribe, then if I do some math really quickly, then I can determine that means we will have 5,000 subscribers, which would be absolutely awesome. But that is very unrealistic for the end of the year. But, if you guys, maybe 10% of you subscribe, then, we'll have, 1,500, and that'd be pretty cool. But, of course, clicking that subscribe button is completely optional. You totally do not have to do it. It is just if you want to stay updated on my content. And on that note, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.